Hello, and welcome to another Whiskey Review with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me for review number 252. We are back in Scotland, in the Lowlands, with Bladnoch. Bladnoch, and I am going to say, because I don't think I've heard anybody else saying it, I'm going to say Vinaya. Vinaya. Surely it's not Vinaya. Vinaya. I'm going to say it's Vinaya. Bottled at 46.7%, non-chill filtered, no colour added. Let's start with some pricing, shall we? At the right time here in where we are in the UK. Yeah. This was showing up for £35 a bottle. Now, you're usually looking around the £50 a bottle mark. If you see this at £35 a bottle, buy it. I'm not joking. You just buy it. Let it sit on your shelf. Never try again. Buy another one. Buy 3 of them. It's a lot of whiskey for £35 a bottle. It surely is. So, yeah, usually around the £50 mark. Let's just get in, shall we? Why not? Now, this has rested a while. It's sat there. Ex-bourbon, ex-sherry. That's pretty much what we're told. Let it rest. Let it sit there. And it's a bit muted. It's a matter of fact, there's some faint rubbery notes, which would suggest to me that there's actually, usually whenever I smell notes like that, it's a bit like an Irish peated malt. A note that I've noticed in an awful lot of them. There's a rubbery thing off it, like inner tube tires, or tire inner tubes, should I say. So that rubbery note sort of shows up. I don't think it is peated in this case. I don't think it's a peated malt that's doing it. Overripe, perhaps even rotten fruit. I'm not selling it even at £35 a bottle. I know. Give it time. Cardboard. Coffee grounds. And yes, some of those, if you've ever had Bladnoch before, Bladnoch sort of cheesy lactic notes. Yep, I'd say so. Buffalo mozzarella. And then when you get past all that weirdness, it's then that you sort of go, hold on, some of this is actually sherry cask that's doing this. And it's there and it's in play. And it's the sharper, lactic, cheesy, vinegary, even. And this is the thing. I've said it before, that sherry casks, remember, or sherry in itself has some of that vinegary sort of, if it's good wet sherry casks, you'll find some of that, I'm convinced anyway, those slightly vinegary, what's the one, Worcester sauce, or even, Worcester sauce. Yeah, notes like that there, which aren't particularly sought in your whiskey, but it's bizarre that when lifting this at first, as I said, ripe, even rotting fruit, not something you want, but when it settles down, it's the sherry. You realise it's actually the sherry casks that are standing out here, and all of a sudden it does start to work. Oily, chewy, sweet, sour, and there's that overripe rotten fruit thing again. I'm going to use another term which isn't pleasant, bin water. And that is not a note that I want in my whiskey. This tastes like what that sort of smells like sometimes, and that's not good. Not in the off, anyway. Keep at it. The balance returns. The bad notes settle out. Yeah, yeah, the bad notes settle out a bit. You know, I've tried to sell this at the start with promise, and I have enjoyed this, but I've also had my moments of dislike with it as well. Once it's on the palate a while, and yeah, 100%. Once it's on the palate a while, and you put those weird, offensive notes that you didn't want in there, once you put them to the back of your mind and put them out of the way, it starts to balance up and starts to become a better whiskey. A bit of heat at the back of the palate. It's sweet. It's making me question myself, because I did like this. I remember doing my tasting notes and liking it. Obviously, a different day, things change. On this occasion, I can pretty much only give you my views on it right now. And yes, the sad thing about the notes, and this one I do remember from the tasting notes, is that those overripe fruit notes are still there, and I don't particularly like them. The finish is a little hot. The finish is carrying through some of that fruit. It's not bad, the finish on it, actually. I'm adding quite a bit of water there because I actually feel like as if this requires water. 46.7%. I don't think I actually dislike this whiskey. Certainly at £35, it's a lot of whiskey for £35. Around the £50 mark, it's a lot of whiskey for £50. It's just a wee bit weird sometimes, a wee bit funky. Perhaps in ways that I rather weren't. Yeah, drop of water brings balance to the force and also to this. That has just become now a lovely little sherried whiskey, and I'm not downplaying it by saying that. I'm not saying it's just a little go, it's just a little nice little sherried whiskey. It's weird how that is just all of a sudden adapted this, changed it, brought the sherry forward, and just made it so much more pleasant. Clean, fresh, even notes of honey in the palate or in the nose now. And that slightly lactic thing that you would expect of Bladnoch, not really overpowering by any means, but it's still there a little in the background. But it's the palate that I'm hoping for the main change in this. Yeah, it's the palate where it improves. As a matter of fact, the palate doesn't only improve, the palate improves to the point where this actually becomes incredibly good. I can see it sticking to the glass. That drop of water has just made this whiskey really good. Everything that's right about Bladnoch shows up. The slightly lactic notes once again, but nicely balanced out with maturation. That's a lovely sherry cask finish, but rich, creamy, dried fruit. Yeah, fantastic. Just too individually divid before that drop of water. That drop of water just brought the balance into this and just gave it the opportunity to mash and become a good thing. Good at that price. Still a good long finish. Nice bit of heat with it, but it's like clove, slight hints of clove and or cinnamon in the finish. Yeah, perfectly good with a drop of water. And don't always do that. I say the same about red wine even. If a red wine is that bad, don't just pour it straight down the sink. Put it in the fridge, chill it, see what happens then. Just see, experiment, try. It's the same with whiskey. You think it's a bad whiskey, put water in it. It's still not great. Put more water in it. What's the worst that could happen? Don't just pour it down the sink and down the drain and forget about it. Give it a go. Just experiment. Experiment. So, this is a bit of a weird choice for an alternative this time. And but I did my usual. I lifted the bottle. Weird, and I don't know why I set my mind on this bottle. Lifted it, tipped a little back to my head, and went, "Do you know that's bizarrely similar?" The Deanston 18. This one, an older bottling of the Deanston 18. It was all the honey notes. They were definitely more outstanding, especially with the drop of water in it. And weirdly, I don't know why, it wasn't just a case of turning and looking at the cabinet and going, "Oh, there's that one looks close." I literally lifted it. It was one of the first, if not the first bottle that I lifted. Tipped it back to my head for a sip and went, "Wow, that's quite similar." So I didn't go looking around then, because sometimes if I do, I start second guessing myself, and etc. etc. And I'm just offering up, to me, what's a good alternative. Deanston 18, the modern bottling of it, and I don't think there was a great deal of change between the older bottling and the newer bottling. I think they've been fairly similar, maybe slight changes. Deanston 18 is a banger for the money. It really is. It is incredible for the money. You'll pick up Deanston 18 for under £80 a bottle, which is fantastic for an 18-year-old whiskey. So even if you're not looking for an alternative here, just give Deanston 18 a go anyway. That's my recommendation. But it was weirdly similar to this Vinaya. And Bladnoch, an interesting whiskey which doesn't maybe get enough interest from the whiskey community. Yeah, that's a perfectly serviceable whiskey. If you were getting that at £35 a bottle, I would be delighted. If I could pick that up at £35 a bottle, I'd be delighted. Here's something I'm going to say. At £35 a bottle, it's a rather large distributor, shall we say, that we're charging that on sale. Rhymes with Schmamajon. And they were selling it for £35 a bottle. This has gone back a while. And it just then showed up again recently, about £38 a bottle. £35 a bottle. They are obviously selling that at £35 a bottle and still making profit. But I'm sure they're not selling it at a loss. So, if it's usually around the £50 mark, and £50 is sort of still pushing it, I mean, you'd probably see it north of £50. Somebody's making a large profit on it then. And it's just a good example. I'm just dropping it in there and saying it's a good example of us being ripped off. Because if you can get it for £35 a bottle, we should be getting it for £35 a bottle. There, that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much for joining me, as always. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much to my patrons. Should anybody wish to join that group, the details are in the video description below. I'll be back next time, something a little different. Until then, look after yourselves, see you to your good health. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.